gotta ask yourself whether reality is a dream or you a dream for reality. We're all a part of the answer to the meaning of it all. Come in and join us for the moment we call now. Rise up, join in, raise the whole vibration.
And hello, it's Thursday. You're looking at my face. It must be Thursday. It's May 1st. It's the live stream of consciousness. Feeling a little giddy, a little cocky off the bat. I've got a really cool guest tonight to share with you guys, so I'm excited about tonight's conversation. I see the chat room lighting up already. Ninja Kitty, early as always. Tim here. Helen, warming up the seats. You guys are awesome. I love you guys always being here. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm excited about tonight. I want to do my thing. Nobody's suggested a name for the bowl, I don't think yet. Let me put that out there so when I bring the bowl on, I can introduce the bowl. This is my amazing sound bowl. I love to use it as like a sonic sage just to kind of align the moment, right? So we'll all take a deep breath in through our nose, feel it go in, release it, breathing in all the stress from the day, breathing it all out, letting it go, and opening up the moment together. So here we go. Do it again. Breathe in through your nose. Clear the space like Brian does. Send it off in frequency. I love that so much. All right, I know you guys are starting to think I'm a little weird when I do that each week, but I like doing that. All right, I'm switching my microphone settings back so that my guest won't hear an echo. And I'm going to get ready to introduce my next guest. First of all, let me just say that if you guys are watching live, just an exercise, type in #live in the comments. This tells the algorithm that there's something going on and it should be paying attention to. If you're watching the replay, if it's not May 1st, type in #replay. That will help. Share it. Click share if you know people that might like it. All of that stuff helps. The community is growing. I also want to address the audio podcast side of the community. I have been working with a great company called Podcast Playground, who distributes this show on Spotify podcasts and Apple Podcasts and all the podcast platforms. And this show, through those guys, has grown to about 180,000 downloads every 30 days, which is awesome. I love that, but I don't really address, the show's not made for audio, so I don't usually address you guys. So welcome and thank you for downloading the show and listening to the show. If you guys listen to the show on the audio platforms, send me an email, Mr. Z1, ZEE1 at AOL.com, and let me know how you like it on the download side. I don't address that audience. I don't get to interact with them. Those are extra audience. But I see DB and the Kings in there. I think that's probably one of my guests' friends coming in there, wishing them good luck. And my guest I actually see in the chat room there too, saying hello to everybody. So my guest approached me, sent me a text through the recommendation of a gentleman named Tom Mayer, who is one of the Spiritual Billionaires. The Spiritual Billionaires is a group that I've talked to a couple of the members here on the show, a group of just kind of like-minded folks who get together and what's up, Quiet Healer, get together and just, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. They just kind of exist, and they share ideas and they talk to each other and they raise the vibration together. And Tom, who's one of the billionaires, has a friend named James Anthony, who is an author of an incredible book called Hot Sauce for the Soul. I have it right here. He contacted me. He he said, I want you to get this book. And he sent me his book. And it's actually really awesome. It's an easy read because it's all sorts of poetry and it's different pages. It's not full on novel that you've got to like, oh my God, I got to focus. You can easily just like say, hey, I feel like some enlightenment today. I feel like a quick quirk, uh, a quick quirky quip. Um, and you can open the book and you can satisfy that urge, which is very, very cool. I'm excited to talk to him about Hot Sauce for the Soul. So welcome to the live stream of consciousness. The author, James Anthony, what's happening?
What's going on, brother? I
How
am like a villain, man. Very excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm super excited to have you. We've kind of struck up this friendship over the last couple of weeks. And it's true. Your vibe attracts your tribe, right? It's really nice to be able to talk about things and not have other people coming at you. What do you mean that's what you think? You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's so nice to be like, oh yeah, I think that too, and that's cool, and let's raise the vibration together, right? We were all part of this together. If you listen to the theme song, the secret's in there somewhere.
Absolutely.
um,
In
but
essence of the fact we probably have had this discussion 1,000 years ago, and like all philosophers throughout history, all Stoics, um, to be able to really embody what it means to have this type of an intellectual, spiritual conversation, one must have a beer while they're having it. So I hope you don't mind if I pour myself a beer and then we can
I
we can move
absolutely don't
move through
mind.
it.
I absolutely
Not
don't
saying
mind.
you have to have a beer, but that's just kind of my style.
I've
That's
got
how I
my
roll.
I drink water during my show, but I
That's
will
all good.
certainly toast with you to life, l'chaim,
You got it, my friend. Just kind of a
and
ritualistic thing. I imagine that we probably had this discussion a very long time ago, and somehow, some way, Tom, with his connectivity and his ability to kind of see things. He's somebody that literally can spot something from across the room and say, that guy or that girl or this one or
right.
that one, they belong together in a way.
I love that.
There's a correlation factor there with the both of them. People talk about law of attraction. I believe attraction is the law. That we are magnets. We're all the same, pieces of thread in the same fabric that are woven together. You pull at one, everything kind of pulls in a different direction and kind of goes simultaneously with each other. So this was
Yeah.
this was long overdue. Long story short.
Yeah, absolutely, and that absolutely is here. Cheers. That is absolutely the philosophy here at the live stream of consciousness. We are all connected. Recently, I've been saying this a lot, like we're all connected, but I've been saying we're all in this together, right? Meaning, like we're here on this planet, and we're all in this together, whether we like it or not, right? So
Absolutely.
I decide to make the best out of it, and we're given free will to make a choice, and it's like, but I can only control my choice. So I choose this.
Absolutely.
Right? I choose this right here. Um, so I got a little off track. I didn't jump on you with my first question.
It's okay.
You know how it goes with the show. You told me when we met that you've been watching the show. I love that fact because to me, like I've got a couple of people who interact in the chat room, but then there's people who kind of show up and they're just here because they're feeling it, and I don't even know they're here. And then later on, I'll be like, someone will tell me, "Hey, I watch your show. I watch your show," and I'll be like, "That's amazing." So I appreciate you always being there
Absolutely.
and enjoying the
Absolutely.
show. That being said, the question coming. And that question is, what are we talking about? What is consciousness?
Well, the dynamic of consciousness, as far as I am concerned, is to recognize that, and I had prepared a thought to answer that question. And now that I'm on the stage, I'm freezing up a little bit, only because um, from an element of why I wrote the book Hot Sauce for the Soul, right?
Hmm.
It's striving and searching. And I thought to myself, like, okay, I have an answer for it. I'm going to give a definition. I'm going to say, consciousness is to be aware, to be self aware, self actualization, all these gimmicky things, right? The
Right.
ability to connect the dots and understand why you are motivated to do the things. All behavior has meaning, and this is the connectivity and why you do what you do. And then I
Mhm.
thought to myself, I'm like, I don't know if human beings as a whole, right, are even eligible at this stage in this form as we are living currently to have the permission to define consciousness. Obviously it's a word that we created,
Right. Right. Right.
philosophically, whether it's Plato, Aristotle, we came through this idea over time as we built ourselves up through technology, through innovation, through intuition, through discussion, through writing, all the
Mhm.
historical artifacts that we've been able to pack together. And we're saying, oh, human beings have always been able to strive for that thing. And in reality, nobody can really define what that thing is because it's all different feelings to different people.
Mhm.
So when
Mhm.
I think of consciousness, I think of it as being aware that at this point, like, your job is to keep searching. I tell all of my clients that I work with
Mhm.
as a life coach, as a psychotherapist, I say there is no finish line, right? And I tell them, like, well, that's the consciousness of what we're doing right here. Is that there is no finish line, there's no end game, there's just the process. Because once you reach a goal, say you have a goal, I want to make this amount of money, or I want to lose this amount of weight, or I want to get this kind of job. Well, what happens the next day? Right, and
Yep. Yep.
that is
Yep. Yep.
consciousness, is
I love
understanding
that.
that there's no definitive end game to any of this. The reality is that it is ongoing, and probably more ongoing than our conceptualization of life actually is, because all we know is from birth to death, right?
Mm.
So in a stream of consciousness, if you look at it from that standpoint, there is no finish line. You're just continuing. And
I
once you
love.
recognize that, once you accept the reality that there's no end to any of this, there's just the process, right? Because if I get a certain goal in my life, well, now I have to maintain, right? I have to wake up the next morning and I have to look over and I say to myself, well, okay, whatever it is that I worked so hard to get to this particular point in my life, I now have to stay there or even get better from there, because life is going to throw obstacles at me that I didn't foreshadow. And I'm going to have to look at it and say, well, now I have to do more. So
Yeah.
consciousness to me is not a definition like I try to think of a good answer, and not something specific that you can, you know, quantify or qualify. It's the process. It's the
Mm.
process of being an abundance of energy packed within this physical form that is moving through the universe and is never going to stop. And that
Right.
I don't think that anybody could understand. And that's the definition behind philosophical reasoning and
I love it.
consciousness.
I love it. I love it. Brilliant. Brilliantly done, man. I agree with you. I think that there are kind of aspects of it that we can define and we can talk about just so that we have a common thread to work with. But I love what you said, and I especially love it in the idea of the goal, right? So the idea of somebody says, well, what do you want, right? And most people want this. I want to be happy, right?
Yeah.
So they look at being happy like a goal, like you just said, like I've got to get to this point. But being happy is really the modality that you travel along the line
Absolutely.
just to already be. So I want to be happy. Okay, so be happy. That's how you
Yeah.
should be. You
Wh-
should it's a way to
One of my
be.
favorite quotes in my book, Michael, is happiness is fleeting, hard work is forever.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not to say like hard work in the standpoint you wake up every day and you got to bust your butt and work 9 to 5. And it's the hard work at being you,
Yeah.
right? It's the hard work at acceptance. It's the hard work at embracing, the water as it's coming at you. I use an analogous statement, and I say when you go to the beach, everybody's gone to the beach and they wander out into the water. The wave starts coming at you, and I say to people, when the wave comes at you, what's the easiest way to not get knocked down by the wave? And they'll say, oh, jump over it or turn your back and run away. And I'm like, no, if you turn your back and run away, it's going to catch up to you and knock you down.
Hmm.
If you
Hmm.
try to dive over it, you get caught up in its momentum and it's still going to knock you down.
Hmm.
The best way, and everybody's done this as a child that's gone to the beach, is to dive through the wave.
Hmm.
You lower your head, you dive through, you go under, you see the water kind of flow over the top of you. You come out on the other side and you see everybody left and right to you kind of wading water, right? They're treading water, and they're smiling, laughing because they just beat the wave.
Yeah.
It's the people that get knocked under are the ones that try to jump over the wave. They try to run away from the wave. They turn their back on the wave. So happiness is fleeting, hard work is forever. And hard work is understanding that the best way to get through something coming at you that's tough, right? And there's another stream of consciousness right here is to dive through that thing, become a
Absolutely.
part of that energy force that's coming towards you and become one with
Absolutely.
it. Swim with it. Momentum slices through, it never cuts sideways.
Love it. Absolutely. I love it. Yes. Go with the flow, right? These simple sayings that, kind of like, oh, what does that mean? But it all makes sense.
Absolutely.
And and happiest is acceptance. True Long Islander. Um,
I know who that is. Thank you, brother.
yes. And I think that's why we connect. Everything you're saying right now is like lighting me up, because it's like, man, if only more people would be able to understand this, you wouldn't look around and see so many people struggling, right? Um, because
Yeah.
because they just don't know, right? That it's like, wait a second, be happy. I want to be happy. Well, no, be happy. Don't want to
Well,
be happy.
they're also looking for something to fix,
Right.
and there's no fixing us, right? We were born. Our physical form was born to break down. So as our physical form fades, our soul brightens. And that has
Hmm.
to be remembered. As our physical form fades, our soul brightens, meaning as this physical thing decays away, we come closer, right, to reaching a connectivity to whatever comes after and whatever, the faith, whatever you believe in, whatever your
Right.
spirituality is, whatever connectivity to the energy that makes all this shift and go.
Right.
This is meant to be temporary. And human beings have a really hard time grasping that. We have a
Yeah.
really hard time understanding that we don't have a lot of density. We are opaque. You can see right through us. We are
Yeah.
transparency in full fold. And that was the premise behind why I got into doing what I do for a living. How I interact with people is just to try to get across that message to as many people as I possibly can that, like, listen, this is supposed to be temporary. Every time
Yeah.
that you beat yourself down and double down on your depression, you double down on your anxiety, you double down on your tension, right?
Yeah.
It's hard enough being depressed or anxious as it is, but human beings double down on it, right? You get
Yeah.
mad. Well,
Oh,
why
absolutely.
why am I so scared of this thing? It's like, well, because you're supposed to be. That's how we're built, right? We were given all these chemicals and neurotransmitters rushing through our body that are connecting to all areas of our brain. Our heart rate's meant to increase and decrease. You were built this way. Stop beating yourself up for what you already are. Start recognizing the hard work that is necessary to become self aware, to have consciousness, right? And understanding that this is a process that's never going to end, except for the fact that physically it's going to end, but mentally and spiritually it's going to probably live on forever. Like I said when I cracked my beer, I said we've probably sat and had this discussion
Yeah.
15 other times over the last 1,000 years. We just don't know
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think we do know it, but I think we just don't
it.
remember the exact conversation.
Precisely,
What were we
absolutely.
talking about? What were we talking about 15 million years ago?
Yeah.
No,
Like, remember that? Remember that time?
I love the outlook, and I didn't actually even know until we spoke today. And I'm going to tell the story real quickly. You texted
Sure.
me this morning, and you were like, I don't know if I can do it tonight. I'm not really a flake, but I've got 9 hours of therapy ahead of me, like therapy sessions, and I didn't even know that you were a psychotherapist, right? I knew you were an author.
Yeah.
I knew that we talked about a couple things, and I love that because there's such a crossover between spirituality and what I talk about, and therapy, that, and healing, the idea of healing, there's metaphysical approach to it, but it's still, to me, reminds me of like a psychotherapist, like, traditional therapy,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, and so you had 9 hours today, or you were working 9 to 9, 12 hours today. um
Yeah.
a lot of
Yep.
sessions. I know you moved some around so that you could do this, but I loved that you said to me, I love the whole interaction, and let me tell you why. Because this show is a passion of mine. I love it. I have a schedule. I show up. I'm always here. But nobody's paying me to do it. And actually, well, now that I'm getting those downloads, it's
Yeah,
starting to
absolutely.
starting to work out, right? But
Yeah.
like I do this out of love. I don't do this out of anything else. And I go with the flow, right? So if something happens that what was planned isn't what's going to happen, I'm okay with that, right? So I was able to respond to you and say, "Hey, no big deal." But I feel like just because of who you are and your understanding of energy, right, and how it works and intention, that just being in this conversation would feel good. It would be like, so it would be a clearing, a little bit of an energetic,
D- diving through the wave, man.
diving through the wave. Exactly, exactly. And a friend of mine said that to me once, and it was like a bing, right? And it was like, just show up, right? You're
Yeah.
who you are. You know who you are. You know what you do. All you got to do is show up, and things will happen. If you don't show up, nothing's going to happen, right? So here we are making it happen. I really appreciate you kind of diving through the wave and being here
And
with
I
me.
appreciate you for pushing me into the water.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
awesome. So there is a second question I usually ask before I get into asking you like how you became a psychotherapist and all of that.
Sure.
And that
Absolutely.
question is if you have a specific moment or memory that you can share with us when like the aha moment of wait a second, there's more to existence than just this three-dimensional me, and going to work or going to school or whenever it was that you might have realized.
Wow. I mean, to dilute that to one moment. Can I be non-specific in my answer, but very
A million
detailed and point?
You you can be exactly
I
what you need to be.
listen, I always knew, and I think a lot of it comes from being adopted. Um, I was adopted at a very young age. My birth name was Noah Isaiah Brafman, which is like an incredibly biblical, intense name.
Wow.
And yeah, so I mean, from just that perspective alone, I was born into something bigger than myself, and I'm not trying to be grandiose at all. Literally, I'm like,
No,
I'm
yeah.
not trying to say, but I'm James Anthony, and I was adopted, and ultimately, at the end of the day, I always knew that I wasn't in the right place in the universe. I was in the right place in human form because the parents who adopted me were unbelievably loving people. They were phenomenal. Obviously, you see me sitting here before you today. I'm a psychotherapist.
Mhm.
I work to advocate for people in need. So I was raised in a meaningful way to always look out for the little guy. I was the little guy growing up in many, many different ways, but I always had conversations with myself. And I don't mean hearing voices, but any situation that would happen socially, anytime that I was somewhere that was uncomfortable, anytime that I felt a little anxious, even as a child, and I'm talking all the way back to 4 or 5 years old, I would have conversations with myself, processing the information and what was going on. People ask me when did you start writing this book? And I'm like, I've been writing it for the last 38 years, literally.
Wow.
Processing how people interacted with me. If somebody would pick on me on the playground, I would have empathy for them in a way that a lot of children wouldn't have. And I
Mhm.
remember a lot of my teachers, when I would get in trouble, the arguments that we would have, the
Mhm.
way I could talk back to them. I wasn't cursing at them and yelling at them. I was telling them things like, you're just not really looking at me in the way that you should be looking at me.
Mhm.
Things like that. And we'd go to like a parent teacher meeting because I would get in trouble a lot. I had an overactive imagination. I got bored very easily. I was told to
Mhm.
sit in the hallway. I used to get excited when the teachers would tell me that because in the 80s, that's what they could do. Now
Right.
you'd probably get arrested, just telling a kid, go sit in the hallway by yourself,
Right,
unsupervised.
right, right.
But in the 80s, when a kid was being bad, they put you in the hallway. And I used to love it because I would sit in the hallway and I would imagine all of these things going on and the lockers. I would have these, visuals with my imagination, with creativity of
Wow.
like, scenarios, like kind of building a movie script of sci-fi fantasy in my brain. And it gave me a chance to get out of that classroom and focus on where my mind wanted to go, which was creativity.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not following 1 plus 2 plus 3, whatever down the line that the teachers
Right,
wanted you to do. I
right.
was drawn magnetically to creativity. And I
Mhm.
realized at that time that I was different. I just remember people always trying to tell me that I need to abide by this and I need to assimilate and I need to, conform to what everyone else is doing. And I know everybody wants to be a nonconformist, but when you're born, African American, you don't know that you're a black man. You
Mhm.
don't know that you're a black kid, right? But kids are calling you horrible names on the playground. And your response to them is like, well, I'm not black, I'm tan, and they were just like, it's
Mhm.
winter, like, and you're trying to find your identity. Your mind searches for other areas to fill in the gaps and the holes so that you can still feel whole when you wake up in the morning. And that was a naturalistic thing that occurred to me when I was very young, and I didn't know what to call it then. My ability to kind of adapt to situations, to always respond, to fend for myself, to not feel like I was the picked on kid. I never felt that way. I
Mhm.
took it as like, okay, these people are paying attention to me, so it's my time to respond to that by kind of anteing up on
Right.
what I'm already doing to get
Right. Right.
everyone going, whether it was the teachers or the students. And I fed off of that. I'm like, okay, I have a purpose in this life to
Mhm.
entertain, but not in like a Jim Carrey and Rob Williams where I'm like funny and I'm making everyone laugh, entertain. But I want your attention so you can hear what I'm saying, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Because universally, I don't know if this is even where I belong. So I'm going to test the waters to make
Right.
myself belong in the way that I'm comfortable. Um,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I didn't know what to call it or define it at that time. And then years later, as I started to like get older, and I took AP psychology with an unbelievable teacher in high school who really took a liking to me, had some connectivity. I was in remedial classes. I was in special education. I had resource room. I didn't graduate with a regent's diploma. I didn't do any of those things.
Mhm.
But I got into AP psychology. You follow?
Wow. Yeah. 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 Totally.
You know,
Not surprised.
somebody,
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody said, yeah, yeah. I mean, he said, he's like, listen, if he does well in this class, I forget which class it was, he can come into my class. I want him in AP Psych, right? It was
Nice.
one of those people that's like, if they don't learn the way you teach them the way that they learn kind of
Yeah.
philosophies.
Yeah. 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 He saw you.
So, absolutely. So I got into his class. I learned about psychology. I knew right then at 16 years old, I'm like, I'm going to get involved in this stuff. But
Mhm.
again, we don't know universally where we're supposed to be in this world when you're young. That
Right.
comes later if you have consciousness, right? And you understand your process that's everlasting. So
Sure.
ultimately, at the end of the day, going to, I went to Columbia University, grad school, Ivy League, and everything. I wasn't supposed to be there. And like
Mhm.
full reverse, I would still come back and visit my teachers. There was a teacher, my resource room teacher, Mrs. Dudek, and God rest her soul. She was a soul like us. She wasn't allowed to say those things to me, but you can tell like this was
Right.
somebody that had helped me as a mentor 800, 1,000 years ago, probably, and had me in her classroom, and basically would come up and put her hand on my shoulder and say, "Don't worry, I got you." She
Mhm.
was a teacher that convinced me that the way that I wanted to write my acceptance essay into undergraduate school was perfectly okay, and that was to write a hip hop song about my life. And I
Wow.
submitted it, and I got into the school, and she said that
That's
that's okay.
awesome.
So, yeah, no, absolutely. So, long story short, I know you got other questions to ask, but it's such a loaded thing. Like the first time that I figured out, w- universally, where I belonged in the whole grand
Yeah.
scheme of things. I mean, it's
Right.
it's
Right.
been repeated throughout my life ad nauseum without break. Um, Almost to the point that when I'm not doing things that connect the dots on that, it makes me depressed and miserable. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was born, the first title for my book when I started writing it about 12 years ago was Born into the Eye of a Hurricane,
Oh.
because that's how I felt in the torment that I felt that I was not fulfilling the path that I was supposed to spiritually, and it started long before I even knew anything about all of that stuff.
Wow. Wow. That yeah, and you know what? And I do get that answer, right? It's not necessarily a moment. Sometimes it's just kind of this knowing, and then as you grow, all of those thoughts and feelings that you had start to make sense. It starts to, oh, this
Yeah,
is why I felt that way. This is, yeah, yeah,
this right
absolutely. So
here is a part of the moment. You know what I mean? Like this right here is a continue. Like my belief system is you can stretch the rubber band of life as far as you go, and it's something that's never going to snap. You know.
Yep.
So whether
Absolutely.
it starts on the right hand or the left hand, it's connected no matter how far you pull it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, as I get older, I realize the control that I have over my reality. Like it's a difficult thing, I think, for a lot of people, not you and not me now, but to understand, like, you create your own reality, right? Like, you don't need to be sad, you can be happy by choosing it. Those things, it's difficult, a lot of people don't necessarily understand. And I love, again, that's why I kind of relate to the whole psychotherapy thing, because I feel like there's help in just kind of words that help to um alter someone's perception of the way they're looking at
Absolutely.
things, right?
Yep.
I mean, really, that's what it is. Perception is everything. And even a part of what you said, right? Like, we're here to experience life, right? And that's perception, is what we're doing, is we're perceiving all of these experiences that we're having. And then we have to a choice. How are you going to respond to this, right?
Absolutely.
um
Yep.
so let me ask you a question. I try to keep this show very, like, I don't love using buzzwords, but high vibrational. I try to keep it very high vibrational, right? I don't love to talk about things like conspiracy theory. Although I firmly believe that there's a whole, right? There's a whole thing, and that's a part of the whole thing. So you can't ignore that stuff. You can't just say,
Hmm.
well, it's not real. It certainly has its own vibration and its energy. That's a part of the spectrum of it. As a psychotherapist, what's your thoughts about conditioning, like that people carry these layers of conditioning, and beliefs that prevent them from having a happy, easy life?
You all already know the answers. Every single one of you. I can't even believe how many individuals I work with over time that swear that they're depressed. And I'm not saying depression isn't a real thing. I'm not saying anxiety isn't a real thing. I'm not going to be dismissive of that. But my philosophy, the approach that I take with my clients, is I try to get them to stop believing in the very thing that the world is telling them is a reason why they can't move forward.
Hmm.
I have so many clients that aren't depressed as much as they're bored, right?
Interesting.
Boredom to me is the next door neighbor to depression.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Sure.
the inactivity, the lack of stimuli in someone's life that makes them feel good, right?
Hmm.
Boredom leads to depression. Depression can lead to addiction. You follow? Because addiction gives you themselves something to do. I tell people all the time that struggle with addiction. I say, well, you have a relationship with that thing, right? And they're like, well, we're in a relationship. I was like, well, you're single, you're alone, you don't have a lot of interact action with other individuals, so you can come home and hang out with this, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's a conditioning over time to believe that you need something in order to fulfill another thing.
Hmm.
And that comes from the beginning of everything. I mean, especially nowadays, where we're able to scroll through the lives of others visually in a way that's never existed before in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're able to see what you're supposed to have. We are living in a
Mm.
generation that we've never lived in before, and I'm not trying to sound like an old head that the kids say, oh, I'm blaming it on video games and I'm blaming it on music, but the reality
Yeah.
is you have more opportunities, whether you're an adult or a child, to compare yourself to what you're supposed to have in order to be happy, right? And it's a farce, it's a falsification. People in many ways, it turns people to morons, and it's better to be moron than more off unless you're in that particular situation.
Yeah.
Um, and anybody can truly fall into that trap. Anybody can fall
Yep.
into that
Yep.
trap. I
Absolutely.
I copy and paste on as many social media reels and posts as I possibly can. One thing all the time. I copy and paste. I say celebrity obsession is the mental illness,
Mm.
right? And what I mean by that isn't telling people don't be a fan of your favorite musician. I mean, I have my favorite, I'm a jam band guy, I'm a Grateful Dead
Mhm.
guy, I'm a big
Yep.
Deadhead. I got
Nice.
mugs over there. I got, my wife is constantly telling me, like we're running out of room for all your shirts. And I'll go to a concert, this, that, and the other thing. But the obsession over it. And I'm not trying to get off track. This is all relative and it
No,
correlates. It goes full circle to what I'm saying.
yeah,
I
yeah.
see that this is the reason that 90% of the clients that come my way that sign up and are a referral for therapeutic intervention, they're literally, the primary thing is falling into the trap of believing they're supposed to have more than what the world is giving them. And because
Mhm.
that's absent, right? Because they're obsessed with seeing what someone else has. Right. So many people scroll through Facebook and they see this farce of a life that people project out to the world. So many people roll through TikTok and
Mhm.
Instagram and they see all of these things going on in the world that they're supposed to have. And it
Yep.
sounds very simplistic on a base sense. Like it sounds like, well, obviously, that's the marketing. That's the,
Yep.
but I thought about this the other day. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't go back to sleep. And I thought about you, Michael, and I thought about this interview that we were going to be doing today. Um, and
Okay.
I and I said, I better remember this. And I'm glad that I did because I almost forgot it until this moment. I woke up and I said, what's happening in the world today is human beings, or for the first time in the history of our existence, are becoming the algorithm.
Mhm.
We are being turned into data points. We are being turned into information that's being exchanged over time and being calculated, right?
Totally.
And we had that discussion about artificial intelligence, and that's being incorporated into it. And literally, like a symbiosis between human and robot, right? We're entering into the precipice of a time frame in our universe where, for the first time ever, we are data points in the same way that computers are. Even us talking right now, if you took a transcript and plugged this into,
Yep.
any type of algorithm, right? Our conversation, our human instincts, our thought process, our philosophical components, our consciousness would be plugged into something that would learn from it and move forward with it. And then what would happen is, because of the way that the marketing schemes and social media work, is all that information gets regurgitated out to the world. And somebody that doesn't have that thought, somebody that doesn't feel that way, somebody that's not living that life, right? They get depressed and anxious. They get
Mhm.
self-conscious and create low self-esteem because they aren't that. They can't have that. And I don't mean they aren't me or you.
Mhm. Mhm.
Obviously, we're just regular folk. I'm saying it gets plugged into the big machine that's being created that's mowing all of us over. And
Yep.
in that becomes a loss of humanity. So as a psychotherapist, I fight against this every single day. I fight against it 9 to 10 hours a day. And
Mhm.
in this discussion, you could probably tell this isn't just for this show, right? I do this 9, 10 hours a
Yeah.
day, right?
Yeah.
I do this all day with clients that are coming to me, and it's the same conversation a lot of the times, week after week after week. And I tell people I'm 1 hour out of the week. There's 168 hours in a week. If you're not going to do the work we discussed for 167 other hours, then the algorithm has got you, right?
That's right.
You've been
That's
pulled
right.
in by a world telling you, you've been pulled in by the politics that are telling you how to feel, by the celebrities that are telling you how to feel, by the news media that's telling you how to feel, by social media that's telling you how to feel. You have all these entities that are so powerful and visual and tangible telling you how to feel. You have that this is the happiness is fleeting, right?
Mhm.
And hard work is forever. The hard work is waking up every day and saying, celebrity obsession is the mental illness. Scrolling through all this stuff is the
Absolutely.
mental illness, right? This is the
Absolutely.
depression and this is the anxiety. This is the
Totally.
frustration. This is
Yeah.
the fear. And that
Yeah.
that literally is my entire, that's 340 plus pages. That is my book. That's why I call it Hot Sauce for the Soul, because the soul is being stripped of all of its seasoning and flavoring. And it's like, we need to add
Ah,
a little hot
love
sauce
it.
for that and get back to our core of being what we're supposed to be, which is creators, innovators, thinkers, philosophers, artists, musicians, like everything needs to be created and we have to band together. And I'm just hoping, like my meditation is built on the fact that if I can get my words into enough people throughout the entire
Yeah.
world, that they can connect it to the other, and you could have a domino effect where that'll at least get more people to awaken to their consciousness that we're being taken over by a streamlined approach of algorithms that are
Yeah.
telling us how to live our life, and we have to fight back against that. So that is me as a psychotherapist in a nutshell.
Oh, absolutely, James. I got to tell you, I love that string of thought that you just shared. There's so much there. There's so much there that resonates with me. That's important for people to hear. What you're saying about your book, you hope that the words just reach the right person. And I I'm not even going to say I believe that they will. I know that they will. I know that they
Thank you.
do. I know that that's how it works, right? But you said so many things, and this is what I was talking about, where I said people are kind of covered in these layers of beliefs through conditioning. The first one you said was huge, 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 huge for me, and that is comparison. And that is
Hmm.
this is before social media. I was able to come to terms with that concept and understand, like, that was something that was making me unhappy and feeling like I'm less than anything, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
and I think it's important, and I think that is a conditioning. I think it's before social media, it was TV and the commercials that you see on TV and the magazines, and this idea of perfect and this idea of beauty and all of these things that are thrown at you that you believe you're supposed to achieve somehow. I'm supposed to be beautiful, I'm supposed to be rich, I'm supposed to have this car, I'm supposed to play this sport, whatever it might be. When none of that is true, you're supposed to be you. You're supposed to do what feels good. And you
Absolutely.
also, yeah, you hit on this idea of depression and boredom. And I also agree that as souls, these energetic beings, part of our to-do list, part of our mission is creating something, whether it be, and I talked about this the last couple of weeks, we all know the standards, right? Artists creating visual art, musicians creating music, um, dancers creating dances, performers creating performance, chefs creating food, right? These
Hmm.
are things that are passions to some people. We all know someone who loves to cook, and look at that person in that light, right? When they're doing the thing that they love, look at how they shine. You can see the energy, you can feel the energy, you can feel the love. And I think that that's just an example of how it should be. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and how it and furthermore than how it should be, it's how it can be.
Yeah,
You know what I
million
mean? Like
percent.
we didn't all of a sudden become something different in the last 10 years. And I am not somebody that sits there like a hater and poo-poos on somebody that wants to cook from their home and just happens to get enough hashtag likes and hits, right? That they make
Right.
more money than somebody that went to school for culinary arts for 8 years and is working 70 hours a week and looks at these videos of somebody that's just chopping peppers in their home kitchen. Do your thing. If you're creating, that's cool. That's fine, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to compare. It could be unfortunate, it could be frustrating. There's always a dichotomy between all of those things. There's a juggling point of life, but we all still can do that, right? And it comes down New Orleans. I remember asking the owner, went to New Orleans, loved New Orleans. My wife and I had our honeymoon there, and I know it sounds like a weird pivot, but you'll get what I mean by this. In New
No,
Orleans, a lot,
stop explaining yourself, James. Stop
I
explaining.
got
Just
you.
do it. Just
I got it. I
swim
got
through
you.
the
In
waves.
in New Orleans, right? A lot of the restaurants are duplicates of each other in their own way. They have like
Mhm.
6 or 7 of the same thing across the board. And I asked one of the guys that was shucking oysters one time, this dude Kenny, he was awesome. He was at Lafayette's oyster bar or whatnot. I think I'm butchering the name, but nonetheless. And he said to me, he said, "This is how we survive." He's like, "We are one entity of creativity across the board. Like every restaurant here is New Orleans. It's
Mhm.
not us against them and this against that person. Like we're not competing against each other. We
Mhm.
know that people were never going to go to the same spot in New Orleans 15 times in a row. They're going to try something different the next time, and then they're going to go back to the place. And I looked at that and I said, that's a framework for life right there, right?
Yeah.
Like stepping on each other's toes in creativity, when in reality, we're all connected anyway. We are part of the same blanket. Every thread that we have is a thread that's connected to the next person to us. And if
Mhm.
everybody could uplift each other and be on the same algorithm and the same connectivity, we could actually be the program system, right? That runs the world instead of everything that's running us. And I
Right.
looked at it and said, that's how New Orleans survived, is that they
Mhm.
all looked at it and said, we can't be against each other. We all have to be bits and pieces of the same thing that makes New Orleans great. And that's humanity in there. It's like
That's
we're all
great.
bits and pieces of the same thing that makes humanity great.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that. I love that. And man, if only the world would take a lesson from New Orleans and just say, "Hey, we're all in this together." That was what I was saying
Yeah,
earlier, right? I mean,
absolutely.
we're all in this together. There's some sayings that I've been seeing. That what's the saying about snow, right? If you don't find joy in the snow, you're still going to encounter the same amount of snow, or no, something like that about you'll have less joy, but still the same amount of snow. And it just makes so much sense. You could replace that with anything, right? If you and I'm not saying you have to find joy in everything, but find it, like I don't know what I'm trying to say here, James. Uh
It sounds
putting
like you're trying to
energy.
say, like if there's a road trip, some people see that as an exhausting trip, some people see it as a great adventure, but it's still a long ride.
Right. That's right. But and that goes back to what I said about perception, right? It's like you're in the car, you can decide, are you going to be like complaining the whole time? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Or are you going to look out the window and be fascinated by the
Yeah.
trees that are going by and and be like, "Oh, look cows. Oh, look horses." I mean, like,
Yep.
you get to decide, and I love it. I love that you've decided to travel in the modality that you travel. I can
Anyone
imagine.
I'm in the car with, I'm the one that's pointing out, I'm like, look at those, look over there. And then people, they'll either be on their phone or they're asleep and I'm looking at it as like I'm venturing into areas of the world. I love being in places that I've never been before. You know what I
I
mean?
love
And it doesn't matter how simple or small that place is. I just like being somewhere. I sleep better when I'm not home. You know what I mean? Like if I'm in another location, I could be traveling across the country and I'm going to sleep in a hotel or in a camper
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
it may be. There's something peaceful about knowing that my soul has just pushed the envelope into an area that it hasn't been before because maybe I'm getting closer to adventuring to where I belong and where my soul is supposed to be. Or maybe
Good
it's
thought.
just cool to break away from where I'm at. But I wish more people could think like that because it's a lot of freedom that
Absolutely.
comes,
No, absolutely.
involved.
And you know what? It's an interesting dichotomy as you're talking about it, because I feel like comfort zone, the idea of a comfort zone, right? It feels okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It feels okay to come home and okay, I went to work, I came home, I did my thing. But I get what you're saying, because I know when I travel, I do feel that kind of butterflies in my stomach, and it's like not my routine. I like
Yeah.
being not in my routine, right? Because it's like, oh, now life is an adventure. Life is not just
Yep.
this mundane, repeat. And again, being able to embrace that is great. There's a lot of people, you see a lot of people, and this was a good lesson too, that just thrive in misery, right? They're just most comfortable complaining about stuff and being miserable. And I'm sure you like me, and an empath, you're trying to help. Oh, it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be miserable, but no matter what you say to that person, that's what they want to be. You know what
Well,
I
what
mean?
I tell them is I tell them to like be okay with being miserable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that, whatever you're feeling right now apparently is how you're supposed to feel about the moment. You're dissatisfied by something. I never tell people stop feeling away. I tell
Right.
them you're supposed to feel this way. It's how you're built chemically. Literally, you were constructed specifically to feel all whether dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, adrenaline running through your system, fear, fight or flight, you name it, whatever scientific, philosophical words they use to describe human feelings. It's how we're supposed to feel. There's no living being on earth that doesn't feel. So when somebody says I'm miserable or I hate everything, I can't, I'm like, well, good. And they're just like, good. How is that good? I'm like, it means you're a human being. I said, if you
That's
didn't
right.
care about what's happening to you, then I would be worried, right?
That's right.
If this awful grief and loss that you're feeling, right, didn't make you feel any kind of way, I would be very, very worried about your psyche right now. That would
Right, right.
concern me if you were like, who cares? It's like,
Isn't that
okay,
isn't that
now they're
psychopathy?
sure,
Psychopathy,
exactly. You get what I'm
right?
saying. That would then
Yeah,
make me nervous. But if you're telling me that you're miserable because you lost your job and you're depressed and you have no path and you don't know what to do with your life, the first thing I say, good. And my clients look at me and they're good. How's that good? And it's like, because that means that you're you. That means that you're brought back down to, I was like, now we have a foundation and a framework and a blueprint to run off. We know that you are a human being. And they're like, well, I
You know
always knew
what?
that. You know,
Amazing, amazing. And I have to say, the universe has been singing a song to me, synchronicity, over the last couple of weeks, a lot of things. And one of a handful of people who have been listening to this show since the beginning, Tim Lawrence, is out there. And Tim is saying it's not been a good day. He found out he needs an implant so that he doesn't stop breathing in his sleep. And his son Taryn has the same malformation. And it's something that his daughter actually passed from in July. And man, I was reading this and I'm just like thinking like, oh my God, how do I address this? Right. And
yeah,
you just gave me that way to address this, Tim. This is a moment that everybody here who's listening can be compassionate and sympathetic for Tim and send love. And
yeah,
Tim can be also validated in knowing it's okay to feel like it's not that doesn't sound like a good day.
yeah, absolutely.
And
And a lot
Tim,
of people would say things. I'm sorry. Continue, Michael.
yeah, no, I just wanted to send my love to Tim. Tim is
Yeah,
he's a loyal reader, and Tim has been on the show. A loyal reader, a loyal viewer. He's been on the show, and his story is amazing. Tim's had his stomach removed. He's had these health ailments that have put him in such low places. And in the last couple of years, Tim met the love of his life in Brazil, and had a child, and like all of these amazing things are happening to him. And Tim, through all of this adversity, he holds his head up high and he smiles and he loves others and he understands. So Tim, I'm sending you so much love for always being there for this show, for the times we met in person, for meeting your son. um, I love you, buddy, and you will get through it because you are a warrior, and you know that. So that's I just wanted
absolutely.
to say that. Yeah, but
No,
you gave me the
absolutely.
moment. You gave me the platform right there. Excuse me, to bring that comment up, right? Because how do you bring that comment up into the public? And there you go. Like, we're all in this together, Tim, and we're all sending our love and feeling it right now.
Yeah.
I gotta clear my
What I was gonna say, and I didn't mean to interrupt. I was trying to piggyback off of what you were saying was the courage to say that. You know, I was surprised, to be honest with you, and that not in a negative way. But that takes a certain level of courage to share, you know, the struggle. And you know, respect to Tim for that, you know, for opening himself up. You know, vulnerability is one of the toughest things to get through. And I have a lot of respect for Tim, and I'm not trying to recruit clients or anything along those lines. But if Tim ever wants to talk to me, my door, phone, ear is always open. Mm. Yeah, I'm not hearing you.
I apologize, guys. I just realized my mic was muted. I was
Okay,
coughing.
that's what it was.
I muted my mic. Um and then I'm talking and I'm talking and I'm like, okay, what's going on? James is looking at me like he's not hearing me. So I figured it out. But I just wanted to say kudos to you because you are philosophizing, and that's what I was trying to say, the word slowly. You're presenting some really great ideas, and great love for humanity in the words that you're talking about and the way that you are um expressing yourself and bringing so I don't know if I was muted when I said this. Angelo said, ask him what is consciousness. Was I muted when I was saying this? Um, basically I said was telling Angelo, you missed that part of the show. We did that already. But Angelo said easy show for you today, which I thought was a compliment to you because I don't really have to talk much because you are philosophizing and prophesizing and just kind of giving us the wisdom that this show is here for. Um, and I see you probably switched off onto a different app on your phone for a second there, but you're back. So
No, we're good.
awesome. So I can't even believe we haven't even really scratched the surface, James, and we're almost up on an hour. Is there some things that you might have been thinking about? I know you watched the show, you were excited to come on to the show. Is there something that you wanted to bring to my audience specifically, talk about? I mean, I know you did definitely say a lot of great things about um, you know, therapy and what you do.
Yeah. No, I mean, basically, I definitely wanted to know a little bit about, and I think it would kind of connect with more conversation talk points about myself, how you connect the dots with all of these individuals that you work with, and what the motivation is behind yourself to want to highlight so many different people with so many great things to share, and just kind of do it out of the freedom of your time.
Good
Because you
question,
talk about
man.
me being a psychotherapist, and
Yeah.
and I didn't mean to try, I just wanted to add to that question.
Yep.
You sort of do the same thing whether you realize it or not, but you do it for the people that are in the position to maybe advocate it, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
I have a friend of mine named Achille Carter, and he has a podcast called Everyday Experts, and he
Mhm.
takes time out to like highlight these experts, and you pretty much do the exact same thing, and it's
Mhm.
unbelievably cathartic, and it's like an epiphany moment, and it's a level of freedom, to be able to be the one to share, because all day long a lot of individuals that are empaths, psychics, intuitives, they listen constantly, and they're constantly taking on the energy of others, and you take it upon yourself to give those people the opportunity to be heard for once and be able to share for once. And I just wonder what motivates you to move that needle.
I love that, man. It's a great question, and I think it was the whole idea of what I said, where I was looking at the world as 95% of them are morons, and then starting to look for the good in people. Um, it was when I changed my perception of what people are that I started to become happy, right? Because I think you mentioned it, like we're all reflections of each other, and if you're looking at everybody going, "Oh my God, what a jerk! What a jerk! What a jerk!" You're talking about yourself,
Yes.
and I think thankfully we're in an age right now where more and more people are having conversations like this and making those realizations, making the realization that it's belief systems that maybe they didn't even necessarily want, that they perpetuate, that they can easily control and change, and the effect that it has on their own existence. So I want to share, I like sharing it because I feel like it all resonates with me. I feel like it all, there's tips, for good living in all of it. But I think that I see a lot of people out there who struggle, who I feel like I believe that the right person is going to hear the words, right? That when the message is there, the right person will be there to receive it. I believe everything happens the way it's supposed to. So somebody who trips across this show and they show up, and my guest happens to say something that resonates with them, that's what motivates me. You know what I mean? I think that just I have the power to create these moments that could possibly create ripples. And
So
I
it sounds
guess
like you saw the chaos in the world, you saw the chaos with humanity, right? And you were
mhm,
observing and watching it from afar, judging in a way. And I'm not trying to judge you by saying that you were being judgmental, but
mhm,
sure,
mhm.
it felt like that. And then you realize, like, okay, I can judge from afar all I want, but that doesn't fix any issue. That doesn't translate into positivity. I have to jump into the chaos and be amongst these people to truly understand them so that I can push the
Mhm.
needle to make a difference. That's what that sounds like to me.
Yes, it does sound it's that's I like that. However, it's interesting that you use that word judgment, right? Because that's what I feel like is kind of, I don't want to use the word superpower, but that's the way I guess it's coming to me. Is my superpower is this ability to look at the world through this non-judgmental lens. And one of the most amazing conversations I've had, a few of them on this show, um, was with this a trans woman, you know, and talking to her about how she became who she was, and I realized that pretty quickly, right? That I somebody comes to me and they're, oh, I'm a trans or this and that, and I'm not like, oh, that's weird or anything. I'm just like,
Hmm.
I'm more like you would be like, oh, that's interesting. What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean exactly? How are you perceiving life? I had a conversation on this show with Flat Earth Dave. So he's a huge flat Earth advocate. And the reason I invited him on the show is because I encountered him, you know, on YouTube. I had seen a bunch of things, and I started going down the rabbit hole, and you know, just seeing him on different interviews, and he was getting so much disrespect. People were just like, "You're an idiot," and this and that. And I'm like, that's just so that energy of the way he was being treated just didn't sit well with me, and
Yeah.
I wanted to meet him and find common ground. You know what I mean? No pun intended. And it was a great conversation. I asked him about his spiritual beliefs, and he told me he believes in a soul and that there's this infinite aspect of us that's not physical. And we were able to have those conversations outside of, you know, the flat earth stuff, which is super controversial. And when you go into a flat earth conversation, you get people on both sides just pointing and yelling and screaming at each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
come on, man. Like,
If there's a wall before Antarctica, let's come on. Let's be.
yeah. And the thing to me, and again, not to get into conspiracy theories and stuff like
Okay,
that, but
we can go there. I'm just letting you know. I'm like,
yeah,
that's not
yeah, that's
pushing
fine.
you
No,
over any.
oh, we could. There's plenty of places to go. But the thing to me about flat Earth is this: flat Earth doesn't necessarily mean the Earth is flat. To me, flat Earth means we're not being told everything the way it actually is. We
Yeah.
don't we don't know everything. That's what flat Earth it means to me. It's a
Unless I
representation.
can unequivocally prove something wrong, I can't unequivocally say it isn't true.
Right. Right. Exactly. And to be honest, I love thinking of the idea that, oh, wait a second, the Earth is flat and this infinite plane, and it's kind of a metaphor for space. You know what I mean? But it's like, you know, I think everybody just got to kind of take a chill pill, relax, and just be like, whatever, man. It's all right if it's flat. It's all right if it's round.
Yeah.
Let's all hug.
Yep. Pulls you
Yeah.
into a place that's beyond what really matters, and usually what matters most is what's right in front of your face in that moment. And those are the things that I think a lot of people fail to embrace as much as they should, is what's directly in front of you. You know, whatever the love is that's directly in front of you, whatever the time is. You know, when I hear people talk about they're going through a really rough time, or they got some really bad news, I work with a lot of clients. You know, the company that I connect with, as a contractor, I get a lot of referrals for individuals that have end stage diseases, dementia, cancer, neurological, degenerative disorders, things of that nature. And in essence, in a lot of ways, I help people die. You know, that's just reality on a regular basis. And I'm not going to lie and say it's not mentally exhausting and emotionally exhausting, but it's very real with me, and I'm okay and equipped to handle it.
Mhm, mhm.
And I always talk to them about time. And I tell them, you know, time is the master, hands that move the wheel. You know, that's something written in my book. And what I mean by that is some individuals get so preoccupied with the idea that they were diagnosed with something that in 5 or 6 years this can take their life. And I try to explain to them, I'm like, well, that's relative to time, right? Because I'm not diagnosed with anything specifically that's going to take time. It's like, and I could go for a walk later on to take out the garbage, and somebody could peel around the corner
Mhm.
and just nail me, and that could be it. All in a matter of 2 hours after I spoke to someone that's worried about having 10 more years left to live. And that's not to be morbid. That's to be real in actuality. That's
Yeah,
consciousness, right? You know, it's
yeah,
understanding that, you know, finite and permanent are things that exist within our time sphere. And I hope more people pay attention to that, right?
Because instead of waiting for what happens in 10 years, understand that you could be so worried about what's coming at you from the right? That you ignore everything that's in front of you and don't have enough time to embrace what's in front of you because you're worried about what's to the right, that you get blindsided by what comes left.
Yeah.
And that's something I impart on everybody. That's
Yeah.
one of my big philosophies when it comes to what I do for a living, is to try to get people to understand time and say, okay, that's great. 10 years, awful, and I empathize. And I do. It's not dismissive. It's like I literally feel you. Like I can hug your soul right now, pull you in and say, I have nothing but love for what you're going through. But
Right.
what are we going to do right now?
Right.
What are we going to do today? Right?
Right.
What do you want to do today? People focus so much, right? As you get older, and it doesn't have to be older, because a child with leukemia or something like that, like you could be young and still have things happen to you that feel older,
Right.
but you're always going to lose percentages of what you're able to do over time,
Right.
right? You're always going to be 80% less. You're always going to be 50% less. So say if you were 100% at 25, and at 45, you're now at 70% of, what you used to be. So you lost 30%.
Hmm.
Human beings love to focus 100% of their energy on the 30% that they lost.
Right.
And when you do that, you lose 100% of everything.
That's right.
So I tell people, well,
True.
focus 100% of what you can do on the 70% you have left,
Right.
right? And then you're still living. You're still a soul
Mm.
within this universe that's existing.
Yep.
And and that's back to a question you asked earlier about conditioning. We're conditioned to focus our energy on the 30% we lost.
Right. Right.
You look at a cake, right? It looks beautiful when it's whole, right?
Right.
But somebody takes one slice out of that cake, right? And you come over and go, who took a piece out of the cake?
Right.
This is ridiculous. It's not whole. It doesn't look as nice anymore. And I'm somebody that walks over and says, but there's so much cake left.
Right. Right.
Who
Right.
cares about the piece that's missing? Just give me
Give me
another
a piece.
slice.
Yeah. Give me a
Yeah.
piece.
And then when it gets down to 2 slices, you know what happens when you sit around a table and there's like 1 or 2 slices? What does everybody say at the party? Oh, I'm full. I can't eat it anymore. I was like, yeah, but you were worried about that slice that was missing from the beginning. Now you don't give a damn because you had your fill,
Yeah.
because you lived with the 80% that was left over as best as you could. And I wish I could impart that on to
Yeah.
everybody on the planet, to wake up every day and live 100% of the 80% that they have left, so that they don't
Yeah.
waste, right?
It's well,
Any of that.
it's interesting what you say, because when somebody is diagnosed with something like that, right, and you can see there's like, okay, they can go down this kind of depression and just until they die,
Yep.
or they've now got this new lease on life, and they're like, oh man, I better wake up every day and live my life to the fullest, and it's, again, it's a choice. It's
Or you can say that you don't know, and nobody knows how much time. That's what I mean by time being the master hands that move the wheel. Nobody has a clue. So
that's right.
wake up that way anyway.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. I love the philosophy. Angelo is asking, we didn't get a chance to talk about it much, so I do want to just revisit this quickly and give you a little bit of a promotion. Does he
Sure.
like poems or write them, is the question. And yes is the answer.
I
James,
can read one before we close out if Angelo would like.
why don't we do that? Why don't you pick a poem from your book, read it for us? But this is the book. Hold on, I'm gonna give you a spotlight. But James Anthony, Hot Sauce for the Soul. You've been amazing to talk to, my friend. I'm so excited that we are new friends. I'm looking forward to what might come out of any possible collaborations, out of an infinite number of possibilities of stuff we can collaborate on. So I'm looking forward to
Absolutely.
that. Let me give
Hey, the
you
pleasure is all mine, Michael. Honestly, man.
Thank
Long
you.
overdue, but I'm super, super excited that I met you, and super, super excited that through you, I could already feel connectivity with the people in the chat room, that you have a universe that you've kind of built within a universe of people that understand this dynamic, and
Yeah.
to be thrust into it is a blessing beyond word. So,
Thank you.
Angela, this is for you. This is called The End. They will tell you that you are wrong. They will rip your entire world apart. They will make you believe their flaws are your fault. They will tell you to rip a poem from your heart, toss it on the floor, douse it with lighter fluid, and light a match. They will call you names, antagonize you over their guilt-ridden insecurities, and neglect you over their delusional, fearful regrets. They will tell you they love you out of obligation, limited understanding of the meaning of the word, lies to your face through a smile and a hug, trying to teach you a lesson you were already taught. Revisionist history illustrated by an idiot, speaking volumes about your density like you don't already know the truth. You will make an effort because you want them to fill the hole so badly, but they are incapable of filling the puncture they created in the first place. If you focus only on the losses, you neglect everything that you've amassed. Don't let the illusion of want overtake the reality of need. Prove to only yourself that they were wrong, that you can put your entire world back together. Your flaws are your fault, but you can never be responsible for theirs. And most definitely, rip a poem from your heart. That's where it's supposed to come from. Toss it on the floor, douse it with lighter fluid, and light that match. Watch every single word burn to the heavens. Rub the ashes all over your hands and finger paint the names they called you on an empty canvas. Fuck their insecurities and their regrets. I promise you, in the end, this will only make you stronger.
Awesome. That's beautiful, man. I love it.
Thank you, brother.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Keep doing you.
Keep doing you,
what,
man.
That's what you're supposed to do. I love that. Like I said, I love that we're connected now. You actually, I think you were a part of this moment that I had as we were becoming friendly. I had a guest on who did a clearing on me, and then suddenly I was inspired. So I just want to kind of bring this up for a second.
Sure.
I am also inspired to write a book. And I've been inspired to kind of write it and present it as a Facebook group. It's called You Are the Answer. That's the name of the book. It's You Are the Answer. You are the answer to the questions of life, the universe, and everything. All the questions you've been asking. Join the Facebook group. So what I'm doing is I'm putting out this book as a living book is what I'm calling it. And I don't know what happened there. Hold on, let me go back. And I'm basically releasing the content a little bit at a time, one chapter at a time. I've been collaborating with ChatGPT on this book. It's in the style of Douglas Adams. I don't know if you're familiar with him. One of the few authors who I could actually read. So I'm excited. I just wanted to share that with the live stream community.
Awesome.
I know most of you guys have supported me, but James, again, amazing conversation. I'm sure I want to have you back if you come back. And
I would love to. And outside of just even this particular, mode of communication, just we definitely have to talk a lot more than we have been.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to put you in the green room. I'm going to say goodbye to my tribe. And so don't go away because I do want to talk to you. And I'm going to sign off. So I will see you soon. Thanks for being here. You got it, brother.
All right. Hey, everybody out there, take care and be peaceful. God bless.
Thank you. The traditional sigh from the conversation, the energy of the conversation. Lily is saying, thank you, James. Yeah, that was awesome. I feel like I've been blessed in the last couple of weeks. A bunch of people have come into my vortex, into my life, that really resonate with these kinds of conversations, these kinds of philosophies, these kinds of ways of being. And it's just really nice to be around people who are loving, who live from the heart and not from the head. And understand that everything is inside, not outside. We got to deal with the outside. It's there, but it helps when you know where everything comes from and being accountable for it and doing it intentionally. Anyway, all right. So just quickly, on Tuesday, I'm excited for holding space. I have Asia Lee, who's been on the live stream of consciousness. She's an amazing artist and woman with an amazing story. And she's been working with some AI as well. And she's got some cool things going on. Programs with AI that help you deal with the moment, right? If you're feeling stressed, she's got an app. We'll talk about that next week. I don't want to step on today's episode. It was great. So I will see you guys soon. See you next week. Peace.
yourself with a reality. It's a dream. Are you a dreamer?